G'day. Must be springtime in Australia because I've just tried taking a couple of these video clips and I've been chased away by swooping magpies. So we'll see how we go this time. I was watching this video clip the other day, a BuzzFeed video clip from my studies at Tabor, and I was in this video clip. There was this high school teacher who'd given each of their students a scrap piece of paper and told those students that they needed to stay seated in their seat in the classroom, no matter where that was, and then set a bin up at the front of the classroom. And said each of the students should try and throw their scrap piece of paper into the bin, and those who succeeded would get a prize. Those students at the front of the classroom, not surprisingly, were pretty successful. But the further and further away from the front of the classroom the students were, also not surprisingly, the less and less successful they were. And you can imagine these high school students, particularly not the ones at the front, but the ones towards the back, were pretty upset about how unfair the system was. And the lesson in that was a lesson about privilege, about how some people in our world have a better or worse chance of what our world rates as success based upon things that are outside of their control. Things like race, gender, socioeconomic status, the country they've grown up in, all these sorts of things. And there's something pretty unfair about the systems of our world when this privilege comes into play. And the reality is that someone like myself is pretty close to the front of the classroom. And I want us to know that we've got to do something about that. Of course we do. This is part of what we are called to do, to start righting some of these wrongs. But today I want to contrast that story with another story. A story that Jesus told to the people who were following him. And he said, this way is the way of God. He said, one day there was a landowner who needed some workers for their vineyard. And so the landowner went, as was the custom of that day, into the marketplace where the people who were looking for work were gathered. And the landowner found some people who were looking for work and said, I'll pay you a day's wages if you come and work in my vineyard for a day. And off they went. A bit later in the day, that same landowner was going to the marketplace again and noticed more workers there looking for work. And so the landowner offered them some work and said, I'll pay you a fair day's pay for coming out and working in my vineyard. Later in the day, again, the same thing happened. More people looking for work, the landowner gave more of them work. And again, even till there was only a couple of hours left in the working day. At the end of the day, when the workers came to get paid, the ones who'd started last were paid first, and so on. And the ones who started last, the landowner said, pay them a full day's wage. And each and every worker that came to be paid was paid a full day's wage, no matter how much they worked. And when the first ones who started, who'd worked a full day, came to get paid, they, of course, were unhappy because they thought they'd get more, because those who'd worked much less had been paid a full day's wage. But the landowner said to them, you've worked a full day and I've paid you a full day. What is unfair about that? Compare these two stories, these two truths. One about how the world does injustice, and one about how God does. See, God does some sort of injustice, and it's called grace. Grace is when those of us who don't deserve get more than we deserve. Today, I want you to think about what that means for your life. Where do you identify yourself? With those people at the front of the classroom? Or perhaps with the second or third row back? Or are you at the back of the classroom? Where do you identify yourself in Jesus' story? As someone who's done a full day's work and deserves a full day's wage? Maybe you feel less than worthy. Well, Jesus says that God's way is to love everyone equally. That in the end, the wrongs of this world will be righted by a God who loves each and every one of us and offers us grace that doesn't make sense. May you experience that grace in your life. Friends, one more thing. I know that there's some people who would love to talk about this some more, or maybe just to catch up and talk about what it means to try and make meaning of our lives and what Jesus is saying to the way that we should live. If you're around about the place and you'd like to catch up, on Wednesday morning this week, at about 10 o'clock, I've got some time and I'd love to catch up with you if you're able to do that. Perhaps message me so that I know how many people I'm catching up with at the same time. But if you're around about the place, message me. And if you don't want to catch up with other people there, message me and we'll find another time. I'd love to chat to you.